They say routine is the killer of passion, but I never believed that. I took comfort in the rhythm of my life: work, home, dinner with my wife, late-night TV shows we barely paid attention to while scrolling through our phones. It was a good life. A stable life. At least, that's what I thought. My name is Daniel, and for the last 13 years, I've been married to the woman I thought I'd grow old with. Olivia was everything I wanted in a wife: smart, funny in a dry, sarcastic way, and beautiful in that effortless way some women just are. We had our inside jokes, our shared playlists, and our favorite takeout spots. We weren't perfect, but we worked. Or so I thought. Maybe I should have noticed the cracks earlier. The little things. Like how Olivia used to kiss me goodbye before leaving for work but had, at some point, replaced it with a distracted "see you later" over her shoulder. How she started staying late at the office more often, texting less, leaving her phone face down on the table. But life gets busy, right? You stop questioning things when you assume you're both just exhausted from the grind of adulthood. I was busy too. I ran my own small IT consulting business, which meant long hours in front of a screen, troubleshooting problems for people who didn't understand how their own systems worked. Olivia, on the other hand, had a job in marketing, a field that required her to be social, to attend networking events and conferences. She always had a new project, a new client, a new reason to be out late. We had our routines, our rituals. Friday nights were movie nights. Sundays were for grocery shopping together. Even our arguments were predictable: her getting frustrated that I was always too distracted by work, me pointing out that she was always busy with hers. But last Friday night, something felt off. It was small, something that most people wouldn't even notice. But when you've spent over a decade with someone, you pick up on these things. We were on the couch, supposed to be watching a new thriller she had picked, but she wasn't paying attention. She was on her phone, smirking, at something she was reading. I glanced at the screen, just for a second, and saw a name I didn't recognize. Matt. Work stuff? I asked, keeping my tone casual. She looked up, her expression neutral, but there was something in her eyes. A flicker of hesitation. Yeah, she said too quickly. Just a client being annoying. She put her phone down, face down, and turned her attention to the movie. But I wasn't watching anymore. It wasn't a big deal, right? Maybe I was being paranoid. But something about the way she reacted stuck with me. A gut feeling that I couldn't shake. The next morning, Olivia was already dressed and ready to leave when I woke up. Working on a Saturday? I asked, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Yeah, last-minute client thing, she said, pressing a quick kiss to my forehead before grabbing her bag. Don't wait up for me tonight, okay? Might be late. She was gone before I could say anything else. Something felt wrong. I went about my day as usual, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I ran errands, caught up on some work, played a few rounds of Call of Duty with my brother. But that feeling never really went away. Then, around 10 p.m., I saw something that made my stomach drop. Olivia's car was parked in front of a small boutique hotel downtown. She wasn't supposed to be home yet, but she also wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't follow her inside. Not yet. I just sat there in my car, staring at the building, my mind racing with all the possible reasons she could be there. Business meeting? A work event? Maybe she was meeting a friend? Or maybe I already knew the answer. I just wasn't ready to face it. I sat there in my car for what felt like an eternity, staring at Olivia's parked car in front of that hotel. The air inside my SUV felt too thick, too hot, and my hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. A last-minute work thing. Maybe she was meeting a client at the bar. Maybe she was here for a friend who was in town. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I already knew. It was the kind of knowing that creeps up on you in the quiet moments, when your brain catches up to what your gut has been screaming at you all along. The knowing that had been building for weeks, the way she had grown more distant, how her phone had become another limb, the way she had started caring more about her appearance again. It wasn't obvious at first, but looking back, the signs were all there. And now, here I was, parked across the street from a hotel, trying to come up with a reason for why my wife's car was in front of it. My mind raced with scenarios, each one worse than the last. Maybe she was inside at the bar, sipping a drink while waiting for someone. Or maybe she was upstairs, the room already booked, the sheets already tangled, her body pressed against someone else's. The thought made my stomach lurch. I needed proof. Checking for the truth. I grabbed my phone and opened our shared location tracking app. It wasn't something I checked often, but we had it set up years ago when she first started working late nights, just as a safety thing. Olivia's location, 303 Lexington Plaza Hotel. Her dot wasn't moving. That meant she wasn't in a bar or lobby. She was upstairs. I swallowed hard, gripping my phone like it could somehow change what I was seeing. My heart was hammering, my breathing shallow. I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples. I had two choices: I could drive away, pretend I never saw this, and let doubt eat me alive. Or I could walk in there and find out the truth. I chose the latter. Walking into the fire. Crossing the street felt surreal, like I was moving underwater. My limbs were stiff, my legs heavier with every step. As I approached the entrance, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass door's wide eyes, clenched jaw, tension radiating from every inch of me. I looked like a man on the edge. The lobby was quiet, the kind of stillness that felt unnatural. A concierge stood behind the desk, barely sparing me a glance as I walked in. I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't planned this far ahead. My whole body felt like it was operating on autopilot, every nerve ending buzzing. I glanced at the elevator. The doors were just starting to close when my instincts took over. Hold the elevator. A middle-aged man stuck his hand out to keep it open, giving me a small nod as I stepped inside. "What floor?" he asked. I hesitated. 6. I had no idea which floor Olivia was on, but 6 sounded as good as any. As the elevator ascended, my mind raced. What was I even going to do? Storm into every hallway? Knock on doors at random? I had no plan, no strategy, just raw emotion and a gnawing need to know. The doors slid open, and I stepped into the hallway. Dim lighting. Silence. Plush carpet beneath my feet. I pulled out my phone and checked her location again. Still here. Still not moving. Room 608. My throat went dry. The proof I didn't want. I approached the room slowly, feeling like a man walking to his execution. I raised my hand to knock, then stopped. What if she wasn't cheating? What if I was wrong, and this was all some misunderstanding? But then, as if the universe wanted to rip away any remaining doubt, I heard it. A low, muffled laugh. Olivia's laugh. And then, a man's voice. Deep. Confident. My stomach twisted into knots. I pressed my ear against the door, barely breathing. I could hear movement. The rustling of sheets. A soft moan. My vision blurred at the edges. I stepped back, gripping my phone so hard I thought it might shatter. My hands were shaking. My entire body was trembling. I wanted to break the door down. To throw it open and catch them in the act. To see it with my own eyes so I could never convince myself it was just a bad dream. But instead, I did something colder. Something more calculating. I pulled out my phone, switched it to video mode, and started recording. I let the audio capture everything. The murmurs. The kisses. The creaking of the bed. I recorded it all. It wasn't until I had over a minute of proof that I stopped. My hands were like ice. My breath was shallow. I had my answer. And it was worse than anything I had imagined. Breaking apart. I left without knocking, without making a sound. My body moved on its own, autopilot carrying me back to the elevator, down to the lobby, out into the night air. I didn't even realize I had driven home until I was sitting in my driveway, staring at the house we had built together. The house that now felt like a lie. I sat there for what must have been an hour, my mind blank, my body numb. And then, like a tidal wave, it hit me. The rage. Not the kind of anger that makes you scream and punch walls. No, this was something different. Something colder. Something dangerous. She had destroyed us. And now, I had to decide what to do next. I don't know how long I sat in that driveway, staring at the darkened windows of my home. The same home where Olivia and I had spent more than a decade together, where we had once laughed over stupid TV shows, argued over the thermostat, and made plans for a future I now knew was a lie. I had proof now. Cold, undeniable proof. But what the hell was I supposed to do with it? My first instinct was to storm inside, wake her up, and throw my phone in her face, forcing her to listen to every disgusting sound I had recorded. I wanted to watch her expression morph from confusion to horror as she realized she'd been caught. But another part of me, the quieter, crueler part, wanted to wait. To let her come home and pretend everything was normal. To let her lie to my face, just one more time, before I ripped her world apart. So I waited. I turned off my car, sat in the driver's seat, and just waited. The waiting game. Minutes felt like hours. My phone screen glowed in the darkness as I watched her location. She was still at the hotel. What the hell are they doing now? I clenched my jaw, trying not to imagine it. I already knew what I needed to know. Every second I spent thinking about them together, tangled in those hotel sheets, was just another knife twisting in my gut. Sometime after midnight, her location finally moved. She was on the road. Coming home. I sat up, my entire body tensing. This was it. I waited in the living room, phone in hand, eyes locked on the front door. Every nerve in my body was on edge, my pulse hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then, the sound of tires in the driveway. The slam of a car door. The jingle of keys. Showtime. Lies, lies, and more lies. The door creaked open, and Olivia stepped inside, letting out a tired sigh as she kicked off her heels. She hadn't noticed me yet. Her back was turned as she dropped her purse on the entryway table and stretched like someone who had just had the best night of their life. I felt my teeth grind. Late night? I said, my voice colder than I expected. She flinched. Actually flinched. Like her body knew before her brain did that something was wrong. Her head snapped toward me, her eyes widening in surprise. Jesus, Daniel. You scared me. I just stared at her. Say it, Olivia. Lie to me. I dare you. She ran a hand through her hair, forcing a casual smile. What are you doing up? I tilted my head. Waiting for you. Her smile faltered. Why? I don't know. Maybe because my wife said she was working late, and I found her car parked outside a hotel instead. Silence. A slow, creeping silence that stretched between us like a razor wire. Her face changed in real time, first shock, then confusion, then calculated innocence. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app, turning the screen toward her. This. You were at the Lexington Plaza Hotel for over 2 hours. Want to tell me why? She blinked, her mouth opening and closing as she scrambled for an excuse. Here it comes. The lies. It was just a work thing, she finally said. A client needed. Try again. My voice came out so sharp it surprised even me. Her jaw tightened. Daniel, you're being ridiculous. I had a meeting. I let out a bitter laugh. A meeting? At a boutique hotel? At 11 p.m.? She folded her arms, her defensive stance kicking in. It wasn't like that. You're making this into something it's not. I took a step closer. Oh, I am, huh? She swallowed. She knew. She knew I wasn't buying it, but she was too deep in her own bullshit to stop now. So I pulled out my trump card. I hit play. And suddenly, the living room was filled with the unmistakable sounds of her moaning, whispering, saying someone else's name. Her real name. Matt. Her breath hitched. Her face drained of color. I paused the audio and locked eyes with her. Still want to tell me it's not like that? Cracks in the mask. For the first time, she was speechless. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted to my phone, as if she could somehow will it to disappear. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she let out a shaky breath. Daniel, How long? My voice was barely above a whisper. She hesitated. How long? A pause. Then, a few months. I let out a slow breath, pressing my tongue against my teeth. I wasn't sure if I was more relieved that she admitted it or more furious that she had the nerve to act like a few months was somehow better than a year. Why? I asked. She let out a choked laugh, shaking her head. I don't know, okay? It just happened. I scoffed. Bullshit. You don't just accidentally trip and fall onto another guy's dick, Olivia. She flinched at the words but didn't deny it. Was it worth it? I asked, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Tears welled in her eyes. Daniel. Was it worth it? She swallowed hard, looking away. That was answer enough. The last lie. I stared at her, the woman I had loved, trusted, built a life with, and felt absolutely nothing. The sadness was gone. The pain had burned itself out. All that remained was a cold, quiet rage. I pocketed my phone, took a slow step back, and exhaled through my nose. I want a divorce. Her head snapped up, panic flashing across her face. Wait, Daniel, please. I held up a hand. Don't. You don't get to beg now. You made your choice. Now live with it. She broke then. The tears spilled over, her body shaking. I never meant to hurt you. I laughed. A deep, bitter sound. Yeah? Well, congratulations. You did. And with that, I turned around, walked to our bedroom, and shut the door. She didn't follow me. Because she knew. It was over. The silence of the bedroom was suffocating. I stood there, hands pressed against the dresser, staring at my reflection in the mirror above it. The face looking back at me wasn't mine, not the man I used to be, anyway. My eyes were hollow, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. Behind the closed door, I could hear Olivia pacing in the hallway, her breath shaky. I imagined her running through excuses, crafting a speech in her head. Maybe she thought she could fix this. Maybe she thought there was still a way to spin her lies into something I'd swallow. I almost laughed at the thought. She was wrong. I had made my decision. I was done. But how I ended this, that was still up in the air. The weight of a broken marriage. I sat on the edge of the bed, exhaling slowly. Divorce. The word sat heavy in my chest. I hadn't said it just to scare her. I meant it. I couldn't stay with her. Not after this. But there was one question still gnawing at me. How do I leave? There were two ways this could go. The first was the quiet, dignified route. I could pack my things, call a lawyer, serve her the papers, and walk away. No fights. No theatrics. Just distance. I could cut her out like a tumor and move on. Or I could make her regret every second of what she had done. The temptation of revenge. My phone was still in my hand, the recording of her betrayal one tap away. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. I had evidence. I could ruin her. I could send it to her friends, her family, her boss. I could shatter the image she had so carefully built, the career woman, the devoted wife. I could make sure that every person in her life knew exactly what she was. Or maybe something even worse. I could go nuclear. I could set up a meeting. Invite her parents, my parents, some of our closest friends. Tell them it was a dinner, an announcement. And then, in front of all of them, I could play the recording. Let her watch as the people who love her most hear what I heard. The thought sent a rush of satisfaction through me. I could already picture the way her mother's face would twist in horror. The way her father would go silent, ashamed of the daughter he had raised. The way her friends would look at her like they didn't recognize her anymore. But then, I let out a slow breath. Would it change anything? Would it undo what she did? Would it make me feel better? I wasn't sure. The moment of truth. A soft knock at the door. Daniel. Olivia's voice, thick with desperation. Please, can we just talk? I said nothing. A shaky exhale. I know I messed up. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But please, please don't do this like this. I clenched my fists. Like this. Like she hadn't decided how this would end the moment she let him touch her. I stood, walking to the door. My fingers hovered over the handle. Then, with slow, deliberate movements, I turned it and pulled it open. Olivia stood there, eyes red-rimmed, face streaked with tears. She looked small, fragile. I stared at her for a long moment, then finally spoke. I want a divorce. Her lip trembled. I know. But can we just talk about it first? Just for a minute? I folded my arms. You have 5 minutes. She swallowed hard, nodding. Okay. Okay. She stepped inside, glancing around like she didn't recognize the room she had slept in for years. She wrung her hands together, struggling for words. I never wanted this to happen. I said nothing. She took a shaky breath. It started as flirting. Something stupid. And then, I don't know. I felt like I wasn't myself anymore. Like I was just drowning in the routine. I wasn't happy, Daniel. And I know that's not an excuse, but... Stop. My voice was calm. Too calm. She froze. I tilted my head. You weren't happy? So instead of talking to me, instead of trying to fix things, you decided to fuck someone else? She flinched at the bluntness. I made a mistake. A mistake? I let out a humorless chuckle. No, Olivia. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is missing a doctor's appointment. What you did was a choice. Over and over and over again. Tears welled in her eyes. I know. I know. She wiped at them angrily. But Daniel, I don't want to lose you. Too late. She let out a choked sob. Please, can't we just try? Go to counseling? Work through this? I just looked at her. I love you, she whispered. I didn't even hesitate. No, you don't. Her breath caught. I took a slow step forward, lowering my voice. You loved me. Past tense. You loved me when I was useful. When I was convenient. When I was safe. But the second you thought you could get something better, you threw me away. That's not true, she burst out. Then why wasn't I enough? Silence. She had no answer. I nodded. That's what I thought. She crumpled, pressing a hand to her mouth to muffle the sob that tore through her. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. The final decision. I turned away, grabbing my suitcase from the closet. Her breath hitched. Wait, what are you doing? Leaving. Panic flooded her face. You're leaving now? Yep. But where will you go? I zipped the bag shut. Not your problem anymore. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Daniel, please. I exhaled, shaking my head. You made your bed, Olivia. Now lie in it. Her legs wobbled. She gripped the dresser for support. I grabbed my car keys and phone, then turned to her one last time. I'll send over the divorce papers. She choked on a sob. Daniel, please. I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. I drove. For hours, I just drove. The city lights blurred past me in streaks of white and red, the hum of the tires on the road drowning out the chaos in my mind. I wasn't sure where I was going, I just needed to be anywhere but home. Home. Funny how a place can lose all meaning in an instant. A house I had spent years building with Olivia now felt like a crime scene. The walls might as well have been covered in blood, the echoes of her betrayal carved into every room. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Olivia. A handful of texts. Daniel, please come back. Can we just talk? I made a mistake, but I love you. Please don't do this. I need you. I ignored them. She needed me? She needed me now? Where was that when she was in that hotel bed, moaning another man's name? Where was that when she made the decision over and over to throw away our marriage for a cheap thrill? She didn't need me. She needed her safety net. And that wasn't me anymore. I pulled into the parking lot of an all-night diner, some no-name greasy spoon that smelled like burnt coffee in desperation. Perfect. Sliding into a booth in the farthest corner, I stared blankly at the laminated menu, my mind numb. Coffee? I looked up. A waitress in mid-40s, tired eyes, a polite but distant smile, stood by my table, pen poised. I nodded. Black. She scribbled it down, then hesitated. You okay, hon? I exhaled, forcing a smirk. Do I look that bad? She gave a knowing chuckle. I've been serving coffee for 20 years. I know a broken man when I see one. She walked away before I could answer. The call that changed everything. I don't know how long I sat there, staring into my coffee like it held the answers to the universe. At some point, my phone vibrated again. I almost ignored it, but something about the caller ID made me pause. Unknown number. I hesitated. Then answered. A deep, hesitant voice came through the line. Daniel? I stiffened. I knew that voice. It was Matt. The man who fucked my wife. Every muscle in my body tensed. My grip on the phone turned white-knuckled. You've got 2 seconds to tell me why the fuck you're calling me, I said, my voice low, lethal. A pause. Then, look, man, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But I just wanted to talk. I almost laughed. Talk? Are you serious right now? I didn't know she was married. That stopped me cold. Excuse me? He sighed. I swear to God, Daniel. I didn't know. She told me she was separated. Said you two were just roommates at this point, living together for financial reasons. The rage in my chest turned molten. And you just believed her? She didn't wear a ring. Never mentioned a husband. He exhaled sharply. Look, I'm not making excuses. I should have asked more questions. I should have seen the signs. But by the time I found out the truth, I was already in too deep. I clenched my jaw. When did you find out? Silence. Then, quietly, 2 weeks ago. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. 2 fucking weeks? And you still went to that hotel? I ended it. His voice was firm. That night at the hotel, I told her I couldn't do it anymore. That I wasn't going to be the other man. My heart pounded. And she? She begged me to stay. The words hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. Begged. She begged him to stay. I leaned back in the booth, staring at the ceiling, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I just wanted you to know, man, Matt said. You deserved the truth. I exhaled. Yeah. I did. A long pause. Then, with quiet sincerity, he said, I'm sorry. I didn't know if I believed him. I ended the call without another word. The final meeting. By the time I got back to the house, it was nearly 4 a.m. Olivia was sitting on the couch, curled up in the dark, clutching a blanket like it was some kind of shield. She looked up when I walked in. Daniel, she breathed, eyes red and swollen. I ignored her, walking past her into the bedroom. She followed. Where did you go? She asked. I didn't answer. I grabbed a duffel bag and started packing. She made a choked sound. You're really leaving? I zipped the bag. Yeah. I am. She stepped closer. Can we can we talk? I turned to her, my expression blank. Matt called me. The color drained from her face. He what? Said he didn't know you were married. I let that sink in. Said you told him we were separated. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Said you begged him to stay. Tears filled her eyes. Daniel, Save it. My voice was flat. I don't care anymore. She sobbed. I love you. No, you don't. I slung the bag over my shoulder. You love the idea of me. You love the stability I gave you. But you don't love me. She crumpled. Please don't go. I exhaled, my throat tight. You already lost me, Olivia. The only difference is now. I'm walking away for real. She took a shaky step forward. We can fix this. No. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No love. No hate. Just emptiness. I walked past her. Out of the bedroom. Out of the house. I never looked back. I didn't have a destination. When I walked out of that house, our house, though it felt like a tomb now, I only knew that I couldn't stay. The air inside was poisoned with betrayal, the walls felt too tight, too confining. Every step away from Olivia felt like shedding a layer of dead skin, yet the wound underneath still throbbed. The night was cold, but I didn't feel it. I drove in silence, the hum of the engine the only sound in the empty car. The city blurred past me, neon lights and empty streets, places Olivia and I had been together, places that now felt like ghosts. I kept waiting for the weight in my chest to ease, for the numbness to lift, for something, anything, to feel real again. But all I had was the silence. The weight of loneliness. I checked into a cheap motel off the highway. The kind of place where no one asks questions, where the carpet smells like mildew and the walls are too thin. The clerk barely looked up as he handed me my key. Checkout's at 11. I nodded, took the key, and walked down the dimly lit hallway to my room. The bed was stiff, the pillows flat. None of it mattered. I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what my life had just become. I had nothing now. No wife. No home. Just a suitcase of clothes and a phone full of unread messages from the woman who had destroyed everything. I thought about blocking her. Erasing her from my life with the tap of a finger. But I didn't. Because deep down, some sick, broken part of me still wanted to know what she had to say. I shouldn't have. But I did. I unlocked my phone. Her texts flooded the screen. Daniel, please just answer me. I don't want to lose you. I know I messed up. But can't we just talk? I'll do anything. I stared at those last two words. Anything. Funny. When I begged her to be honest, to be faithful, to love me the way I loved her, that wasn't enough. But now that she had lost control, she was willing to do anything to get it back. I clenched my jaw, tossed the phone on the nightstand, and lay back against the stiff mattress. I didn't respond. The first morning without her. I woke up to sunlight bleeding through the motel blinds, a dull headache settling behind my eyes. The realization hit like a gut punch. I wasn't waking up in our bed. I wasn't waking up to Olivia. For the first time in 13 years, I wasn't someone's husband. The thought left a bitter taste in my mouth. I dragged myself out of bed, showered in water that barely got warm, and got dressed. As I was lacing up my shoes, my phone buzzed again. I ignored it at first, assuming it was her. But when I glanced at the screen, my stomach twisted. It wasn't Olivia. It was my lawyer. Making it real. I had called him the night before, between the mindless driving and the motel check-in, leaving a voicemail that probably sounded like a man on the verge of insanity. "Daniel," he said when I answered, his voice steady. "I got your message. Are you sure about this?" I let out a slow breath. "Yeah. I'm sure." "Then we'll move fast," he said. "I'll draft the paperwork today, send it over for you to sign. Do you want to serve her in person or have me do it?" I hesitated. I could have taken the easy way out, let him deliver the papers, let her read them alone in that house and realize what she lost. But that wasn't enough. I wanted to see it. "I'll do it myself," I said. "Are you sure?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah." "All right," he said. "I'll have everything ready by tomorrow." Tomorrow. One more night. One more night to sit with the weight of this, to figure out if I wanted revenge or just release. A glimpse of the future. I didn't go to work that day. Didn't tell anyone what had happened. I spent the morning drinking shitty motel coffee, staring at my phone, wondering if I should tell anyone, that my entire life had collapsed. I could have called my brother. He would have listened. Would have told me Olivia was a piece of shit, that I deserved better. But I didn't. Because saying it out loud would make it too real. Instead, I did something I never expected. I pulled up an old contact. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. And I hit dial. An unexpected voice. "Hello?" Her voice was the same. Soft. Familiar. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Hey, Sarah." A pause. Then, with quiet surprise, "Daniel?" "Sarah. My first love. The one before Olivia. The one who got away." I didn't know why I called her. Maybe I just needed to hear the voice of someone who once loved me without conditions. "Wow," she said after a moment. "I didn't think I'd ever hear from you again." I gave a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah. Me neither." She hesitated. "Are you okay?" I almost said yes. Almost lied. But I didn't. "No," I admitted. "Not even close." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then, "Want to talk about it?" And for the first time since this nightmare started, I did. I didn't tell her everything. Just enough. Enough for her to understand that I was drowning. She listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't judge. And when I was done, she said something that nearly broke me. "Daniel, you are so much more than this moment." I swallowed hard. "Doesn't feel like it." "It will." Her voice was warm, steady. "One day, you'll wake up, and she won't be the first thing on your mind. One day, you'll laugh without it feeling forced. One day, you'll be free." I closed my eyes. "You think so?" "I know so." A long pause. Then, quietly, she asked, "Where are you right now?" I hesitated. "Not home," I said. She smiled. I could hear it in her voice. "Good. Maybe don't go back for a while." I exhaled. "Yeah." We talked for another hour. About nothing. About everything. About all the things that weren't Olivia. And for the first time in days, I felt like me again. The final goodbye. The next morning, I went home. Not to stay. Just to finish it. Olivia was waiting in the living room, eyes red, face hollow. Daniel. I placed the divorce papers on the coffee table. Her breath caught. Sign them, I said. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She knew. There was nothing left to say. I didn't wait for her response. I turned around, walked out the door. And this time, I didn't look back.